Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the March 8th, 2023 Design Review Board meeting. We have a short agenda today, and there have been a number of continuances. I'm going to turn it over to Michael Belush to get into more detail.
Thank you. Just to let everybody know, we do have 4 of 5 members current in the chambers presently. We're still waiting on Mr. Sam Sheldon. He's advised us he will arrive between 9:30 and 10 o'clock. But we have enough to move forward with the applications that are on the agenda today that don't include variances. With that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Stephen Rothstein, who can let members of the public know how they may participate in today's proceedings.
Sure. Thank you, Michael. Good morning, all. Today's meeting of the Design Review Board has been scheduled in a hybrid format with a quorum of the board physically present in the Commission chambers at Miami Beach City Hall and applicants, staff, and members of the public appearing either in person or virtually via the Zoom platform. In order to participate in today's meeting, those wishing to participate... Myself twice. Okay, no worries. In order to participate in today's meeting, those wishing to participate via the Zoom platform webinar may dial 888-475-4499, which is a toll-free number, and enter the webinar ID, which is 822-7394-1924, or log into the Zoom app and enter the webinar ID, which again is 822-7394-1924. Any individual wishing to speak on an item must click the raise hand icon if they are using the Zoom app or dial *9 if they are participating by phone. Before I swear in those that are testifying, I'm going to read the city's notice regarding lobbyist registration. If you are appearing on behalf of a business, a corporation, or another person, you need to register as a lobbyist with the city clerk's office. If you haven't registered yet, you should register before you speak to the board. You do not have to register as a lobbyist if you are speaking only on your behalf and not any other party, or if you are testifying as an expert witness providing only scientific, technical, or other specialized information or testimony in this public meeting, or if you are appearing as a representative of a neighborhood association without any compensation or reimbursement for your appearance to express support of or opposition to any item. Expert witnesses and representatives of neighborhood associations shall, prior to appearing, disclose in writing to the city clerk their name, address, and the principal on whose behalf they are communicating. If you are an architect, attorney, or employee representing an applicant or an objector, you must register as a lobbyist. These rules apply whether you're appearing in favor of or against an item, or encouraging or arguing against its passage, defeat, modification, or continuance. Before we proceed, I'm going to now swear in members of the public that are here in chambers. So for those that are going to be testifying before the board, please stand and raise your right hand. Okay, great. Here we go. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony that you'll be giving in this proceeding is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Okay, thank you all.
And before we begin, I would suggest we had on our agenda today the election of the chair and vice chair, but since we do not have Mr. Sam Sheldon here, I would suggest we table that until he arrives at the meeting, and we proceed with the request for continuances at this time. So with that, the first request for continuance is DRB 22-0847 for 10 Century Lane, and the applicant is requesting a continuance to the April 4th meeting. Do we have anybody from the public who wants to speak on this request for continuance? I see nobody online and nobody in chambers. Can I get a motion on that request?
I move to continue DRB file 22-0847 to the April meeting.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Diffenderfer. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0. The next application for continuance is DRB 22-0841 for 8th Century Lane. The applicant is requesting a continuance to the April 4th meeting. Is there anybody online who wishes to speak on this request for continuance or in the audience? Seeing none, can I get a motion?
I move to continue DRB file 22-0841 to the April meeting.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Diffenderfer. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0. The next request for continuance is DRB 22-0876 for 333 East Riva Alto Drive. The applicant is requesting a continuance to the April 4th meeting. Is there anybody in chambers or online who wishes to speak on this request for continuance? We do have Mr. Matt Amster. Matt, online.
Good morning, Matt Amster for Cal Riddell, Fernandez, Larkin, and Tapanez. Michael, we're still revising the plans, and I believe we have to address the 120-day continuance, so we may need to re-advertise. So maybe as a just to be on the safe side, we can continue to April, but I think we need to look into that as we may need to re-advertise.
Okay, thanks, Matt. Can I get a motion then to continue this to the April 4th meeting?
I move to continue DRB 22-0876 to the April meeting.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Diffenderfer. All in favor?
Aye.
The motion passes 4-0. The next request for continuance is DRB 22-0900 for 782nd Street. I believe the applicant's requesting a continuance till the May 2nd meeting. Is that correct?
Yes.
Are there any members of the public, online or in person, who wishes to speak on this request for continuance?
Alejandro Moreno, Burkow, Riedel, Fernandez, Larkin, and Tapanez, 200 South Biscayne Boulevard. And yes, here on behalf of the applicant today, and we are requesting, Mr. Chair, an extension onto the May 2nd hearing so that we can revise our plans and address some of staff's recommendations in the staff report.
I see no other public comment. Could I get a motion on that request for continuance?
I move to continue DRB 22-0900 to the May 2nd meeting.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Diffenderfer. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And that motion passes 4-0.
Thank you very much. Have a good day.
And before we continue with new applications, we forgot to do the approval of the minutes from the February 7th meeting. Can I get a motion on that?
I move to approve the minutes from February 7th.
Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Agopian. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
That passes 4-0. With that, we'll move on to our first application for design review today, and I'll let Giselle read that into the record.
The first item in the agenda is DRB 22-0903, 700 West 51st Street. An application has been filed requesting design review approval to replace portions of the existing roof with a new metal roof.
So as noted in our staff report, the subject property contains a two-story mixed-use building constructed in 1926 in the Med Revival style of architecture. This is a non-conforming building in the single-family district. The applicant is proposing to replace the existing clay tile with a metal roof. We noted that based upon the city code, a change in this material for a Med Revival style building does require review by the DRB to change it to a metal roof. We understand that the metal roof is more resilient and resistant for hurricanes, so we are supportive of the applicant's request. We do recommend that the applicant, that the finish for the metal roof be of a terracotta color, or ideally, if the applicant can find a metal roof with a barrel tile profile, that be employed versus a typical standing seam metal roof. With that, we are recommending approval of the application, and we have the applicant here who can provide some additional information. Go ahead.
Hello, everyone. First and foremost, Happy Women's Day today. So if you guys might want to remember that. A little bit about me. My name is Eddie Chablis. I grew up in Miami. I went to high school in Miami and college. I graduated in architecture. I have a general contractor's license. I'm also a real estate broker. And I live in the neighborhood. This building has been in our family for decades, and it's very important to us. Before coming before you, the cost of going to this hearing is actually quite a bit for just a roof. It's actually a high portion of the cost of the roof, but it was important for us to get this metal roof done instead of the typical concrete tile. Right now, for the last 30 years, it's been flat concrete tiles in the building. And every time there's a wind, there's a neighbor around saying, hey, look, this landed on my car. This happened here. So We have to replace that roof. It's the time to do it. So we've looked at different materials very carefully, and we feel the metal, as Mr. Belush suggested, is probably the best thing because it's cleaner, looks better, and metal has been around for many, many years. Some of the oldest buildings dating in France and other places have metal roofs. They're copper type of roofs that look that way. So I would like to work with staff and use the metal roof. The only differences I have with staff is they want to go with the terracotta. I'm not really sure I want to try to do like a fake looking tile. You know, I want to either do the metal or do the tile. I think if I go closer to the tile, it's going to look like a fake thing, and I don't want it to look fake. The building, by the way, is a commercial building. It's not a residential building. All the commercial storefronts, you have storefront doors, everything is in metal frame, so it's not going to be something that's going to look strange. That's number one. Number two, the building sits at 33 feet. Every house around the area is single family. So for you to see even the roof, you'll have to back up literally a few hundred feet in order to see it. The roof overall is all flat. The whole entire roof is 120 squares. The part we're talking about is 30 squares. It's just a sloping part. So I would like, ideally, for us to have a silver color, clean seam metal roof. I'm happy to match the color with the silver frames of the commercial. I think that's fair. If they want to do terracotta, I mean, okay, but that's not my first choice. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Does that conclude your presentation?
That's it. If you have any questions, I'm happy to.
And there is nobody online with their hand raised for comment? And I see nobody in the audience.
And I'm going to close the public portion of the addendum item and open it up to the board to discuss.
Yeah, so I was able to look through your application since you don't really have a presentation. So I know you show some specs and you show a roof plan. And I'm looking here I've driven past the building and I'm looking here on Google Earth, so I can see the profile. I kind of support staff's recommendation that the roof be the color. You know, I think it looks in place right now with the color that it is now, which I guess is kind of like a terracotta color, but it's a tile roof. But I'm not sure a silver or a color would be as kind of in the context of the building itself. So I'm fine with the metal roof. We use them all the time. They're very durable. They're great in this climate. They're impact, they're wind resistant and all that great stuff. So, but I do think maybe working with staff on the color, I think kind of a more natural color versus silver would be appropriate.
Okay, just to be clear, right now the roof is white. It's not terracotta color.
Okay. Well, I think you did yourself a little bit of a disservice by not providing any visual materials for us to be able to.
And I think, Sarah, there were, I don't know why it was not uploaded. He did provide some photographs, and I think you had a rendering too, but for some reason that was not.
I did the renderings, professional renderings, and I also brought a piece of the material of the silver. I'm sorry, I presented it to the board. I didn't have a copy to bring here.
The metal tile sample is a typical standing seam metal tile. He did provide, I don't know why it's not uploaded into the application documents here, but he did provide photographs, and I think if you look at the street view, you can see the building. And
I mean, I can't really envision what you're asking us to install. I see I've been past this building a million times. It's beautiful. Thank you. And thank you for not tearing it down and preserving this lovely historic.
We would never do that.
It's so beautiful. Yeah, I don't know. I'm a little hesitant to approve something that I've never seen before, especially because staff seems to want to do one color and you're asking for another color.
Would you be okay with working with us to go with a more natural color, as Jason suggests?
Not my first choice, but yes, I would be okay with making the terracotta color on the And by the way, it's going to be aluminum, more expensive because I don't want anything to rust. So we're not using panels that are the galvanized, which tends to discolor. It'll be full gauge aluminum metal. But yes, I will be open to working with staff as far as coloring is as you deem necessary. No problem.
Thank you for not tearing it down.
Yeah,
I think we all, everybody who lives here loves that building, and it's so
right?
cool to
It's
have
great.
a commercial building in the middle of
my
that.
wife uses the Pilates. My kids are
Yeah.
there. We're not. That's not going to happen. So we maintain it. We try to keep it, and we live in the neighborhood as well. By the way, I live on North Bay and 50th, so I walk by there all the time. We're living also, and I've lived there 24 years in the neighborhood. So, and I have neighborhood support. All the neighbors around, they want the metal. Across the street, directly across the street from this house, is a metal roof in itself. So,
So, I'm sorry, tell me again, what color were you preferring?
I was preferring just a color that matches the frames of the commercial. So which would be like a natural silver color, because with the sun anyways, colors fade. I didn't want to use anything intrusive that over a few years it starts changing colors. But like I said, that silver, it would be clean, it wouldn't be even visible. It'd be the same color that it is right now. It's been for the last 30 years. I'm happy to pull a tile out and match exactly the color that it's been the last 30 years. I can do that. And
It's weird because the Google Earth is showing a terracotta tile, so I don't know.
Is the building still yellow?
It's a concrete flat tile, and I guess it's.
But it does have that terracotta color. It is a terracotta color tile.
Okay, I mean, maybe it's so faded it barely looks. It's like a light gray to me, but okay.
I think that, obviously everybody, including you, is interested in maintaining the character of the building. And of course, the roof really affects that. So I'd be willing to defer to staff to work at that level to come up with something that is both a modern upgrade, but also very much retaining the historic character of the building.
Okay, I can make a motion to approve DRB application 22-0903 with the condition that the applicant will work with staff on the color of the roof and approving the metal roof as specified.
Thank you, everyone. We'll work with staff.
Let's see.
Second. So motion made by Mr. Agopian. Do I have a second on that?
Second.
Second by Mr. Comas. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
So with that, our next application is DRB 22-0904 for 1439 Alton Road. Now, there was a minor issue with this application. The applicant is requesting both design review approval for exterior modifications and a variance related to distance separation for the bar for religious institution. After further review of the language of the ordinance and when the jurisdiction of the Board of Adjustment was sort of split to also include the DRB and HPB, we had to go back and look at the legislation at the time to clarify that distance separation requirements do require the Board of Adjustment review and approval. So with that, we are going to separate the variance application that was part of this and schedule that for the Board of Adjustment meeting for April 14th and proceed with the application related to the design review portion of this application. So with that, the applicant now is before you for, for design review approval for exterior improvements associated with the new bar. And this location is 1439 Alton Road. The applicant is proposing to convert the existing building located at the rear of the site into a new bar with a variety of seating areas. Staff is supportive of the changes to the design made at the rear of the alley. Right now it's basically all paving or brick pavers, and there's no landscaping. This is going to be a great improvement and enhancement of the entire rear area along the alley, especially as it does abut a single-family historic district to the east. We did include several conditions regarding operations in our final order. However, since we're now reviewing this for design only for the DRB, we're going to recommend that all those conditions regarding operations be removed from the order, and all those concerns that we expressed as part of this application to the DRB will be expressed in our variance application to the Board of Adjustment. So those applications will not be going away. Based upon our recommendation, we're just transferring those conditions over to the Board of Adjustment. We'll have the authority to review those as part of the variance request. With that, I'll turn it over to Ian, who can here to present the application.
And Ian, just before you start briefly, are there any ex parte communications with the board to be disclosed? No, having none. 10 minutes, okay?
Sure.
Okay.
Hi, good morning, Chair and members of the board. My name is Ian Bachakov. I'm with Ackerman Law Office in 98 Southeast 7th Street, Miami, Florida, here on behalf of Abbey Casita, LLC. You'll know the owners from an institution on the beach here, the Abbey Brewing Company on 16th, just off of Alton. We're in a little bit of a situation, as a reason why we're here before the board. They're not going to be able to renew their lease, and they have to find a new location. And so this is really a lifeline application to find a location that's close by to retain their longstanding local customers and patrons, and trying to find a space that fits a very similar concept for them. I have a presentation, if we can pull it up. And while we're waiting for that, here we are. I have with us today the architect, Thomas Weber, and his associate, Julio, the principal, the owner, Ray, and his wife, Maritza. And my associate, Cecilia, is here as well to assist. So he's owned and operated the Abbey Brewing Company at 1115 16th Street, Miami Beach, since 1995, going on 28 years now. One of the things I want to mention here is, and he'll tell you himself when he comes up and speaks if he so chooses, is that in his 28 years of operating there, he's never once received a violation for noise complaints, and that's with a residential building immediately adjacent within 25 feet. And so while that may be a little more important to the variance that we're not hearing today, I did want to mention that and make that clear. So let me see here if we can. There we go. So with the variance removed from our application, we're here simply requesting approval for a new outdoor seating area, which would include reconfiguration of an existing rear parking lot in the building. My presentation is going to be a bit shortened because I just found out right when we got here this morning that we're going to skip over everything variance related, since that has to go to the BOA. So the property is located at 1439 Alton Road within a CD2 commercial corridor. You'll see from the satellite view here, it's right along Alton Road, about 2 blocks south from Lincoln Road. And I want to also point out that if you look towards the top left corner of that map, you'll see a building pointed out, Yardbird Table and Bar. Right there, immediately to the left of Yardbird in that building, is where his current location is. So you may know this building as the building where the Lime Mexican Grill is located. The Abbey Casita would be taking up the space that is in the rear, so you wouldn't even see it from the right-of-way. You'll notice the big, lush covering that goes into the courtyard between the two storefronts. The entrance would actually be walking in through that courtyard, and it's set back towards the center of the property. I also have here a picture from the rear showing the existing condition of that area, which we're going to want to redesign, and I'll show you that redesign in a moment. I also want to point out, here's a couple more pictures of the alley in the back. That's about a 20-foot alley, Lenox Court, and it's really just a service alley lined with dumpsters and parking spaces. The neighbors have them set up the same way that we're going to be proposing, as pull-ins directly from the alley adjacent to the right-of-way. And you'll also notice that the neighboring buildings to the east, which are single-family, there's a solid concrete block wall and a gate there with landscaping that goes above it to just completely buffer from our space let alone the additional area where the parking spaces go and where we're going to have an additional landscape buffer and a metal fence that staff is proposing, which we have no objection to. So here's the existing site plan. The building that is the subject of our application is the building that's westernmost here, the large one in the center of the folio. And as you see, it's set back from both the front and the back almost equally, just really set there in the center of the parcel. The entrance would be from the western side between the two storefronts, and there would be no ingress or egress other than emergency ingress or an egress from the rear and employees parking. So here's the proposed site plan, and I think this is one of the most important slides we need to look at. You'll notice generally the bar is going to be located within the interior of the building. We're not proposing any sort of outdoor bar counter. All we're proposing is adding landscaping buffer, and since putting together this presentation and submitting it, because we had to submit it in advance, we've actually looked at it again, and ownership has decided to reduce the number of overall seats. So we would only be proposing 20 seats in the exterior courtyard garden area. And I want to call it a garden because, as I'll show you in slides later, that's really the vibe they're going for. You know, this bar is meant to be a laid-back, relaxed, chill environment. We're not proposing any speakers outside. It's meant to be a place to go and get a quiet drink with friends. And so we have the garden seating area with ADA accessibility from the back. And to the east of that, we're proposing about a 5-foot landscape buffer, metal picket fence. And then further to the east of that, we have 3 parking spaces, 1 ADA and 2 more that are going to be meant for employee parking only. So we're not going to have any patrons parking back there coming in or out through the alley. And then you'll notice at the northeast corner, there is an existing dumpster room. It's kind of standalone dumpster room. We're going to add an air conditioning unit to it, maybe even make it a little bigger because they share the dumpsters with Lime, and so there's going to be 7-day pickup of the trash, because even though we're not putting food in there, the restaurant is, but that's going to need to be upgraded as well, and all of that kind of acts to play in as a buffer from the residential to further to the east. So the concept obviously is going to be a little different from the Abbey in that the existing Abbey does not have any outdoor seating. It's completely interior. And so the goal here is to slightly change the concept without losing the feel, to add that garden area, that beer garden feel for people who so choose. And actually one of the most important reasons for it is a few years back they decided smoking inside is not something people want. They removed the ability for people to smoke inside the bar, and revenues actually went up. And so they're not going to allow smoking inside the bar. So having an outdoor area where people can go and smoke that so choose is another important feature for a local neighborhood watering hole. And so here's just a close-up view of what the interior design is looking like. Some of the seats are actually going to be removed to get it down to about 40 seats, but just wanted to show you that for reference here. With regard to the courtyard area, this doesn't show on this slide the buffer, but it does show we're proposing to plant 3 trees that create almost like a canopy once they're grown out for shade for those patrons. So here is a landscape plan which shows sort of how the landscaping is proposed to be configured. We did not have a landscape architect prepare this, so one of the requirements by staff is to actually have a landscape architect prepare it, go through it, make sure the trees we're proposing are sufficient for the resiliency criteria in the code, make sure that they are good trees for Miami Beach, native Floridian trees that are saltwater resistant and whatnot. None of that we have any objections to, and that's something we would look at once we have the approval. Also, it's important to note that because of the reduction in the seats to have total 60 seats and no more, that there's no additional parking requirement for this project. So really we're looking at foot traffic, people coming in, walking in from Alton Road and walking out also from Alton Road. I will note that there is a second floor to the building. It's really unrelated to the outdoor area, but it's going to be solely for storage, so no patrons are going up there. It's just for reference here that I have it on the slide. So a little bit about our operator. Ray has been operating again since 1995. The bar's been here and operating as long as my associate's been alive. It's a local watering hole. This is a place for the neighbors, right? This is not a tourist trap. This is not a tourist location. The people who come drinking here are the people who have late night shifts at the hospital, at the local restaurants. They come here to grab a drink, unwind before they go home and go to bed. That's what this is meant to be. Mood music in the interior, nothing loud, nothing thumping. Just a place to maybe take a date before going out to dinner somewhere else or coming in to unwind after a late shift. You see Ray actually received a proclamation from the mayor and I believe Commissioner Rosen Gonzalez just about 6 months ago, proclaiming how amazing the place is and how it's beloved by the local community. I also have pictures here of the existing bar showing the residential building right behind it and the interior of the bar for anybody who hasn't seen it or just hasn't been in a while and doesn't remember.
Ian, how much time more do you need?
1 minute.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry about that. So here's a mood board. This is a mom and pop's business. A lot of the money spent is going to the fees just to be here before you today. And so, couldn't put a rendering together, but wanted to give you a feel of what we're going for with this outdoor courtyard. So we pulled pictures of really the mood we're looking for from Miami Beach properties. One that we didn't include in here because we found it a little bit after was Casa Tua and how they do their exterior, if you're familiar with it. That's the kind of vibe, the kind of theme that we're going for, soft lighting, just to keep, when it gets dark out, the lighting similar to what it is in the interior, otherwise have a very open garden style. And I'm actually going to ask Maritza to come up and speak a little about it in as much as this has been really her creation to kind of put this concept together for this location, but really going for an aesthetic of bohemian and just accent lighting and lush landscaping, all which we believe play beautifully with the Mediterranean style of the building that's facing in the rear. And so with that, I'll let Maritza speak.
Hello, everyone. My family's been here since the 1940s, and my husband and I are not young any longer. We have tons of customers that come from Mount Sinai that have 24-hour shifts, all that type of situation. My family's in medicine, and what we're trying to create is a sanctuary, like a relaxation sanctuary, away from loud noise and, loud music. So that is what we need to do. That's what we feel is great for us, for the people that are acquainted with us. And that's the type of customer that we want to cater to. That's our demographic. So it's going to be, Casa Tua is my inspiration. It's one of my favorite, if you're familiar on 1700 James Street, one of my favorite places. I was there at the first day that they ever opened, and I'm one of their patrons, and I found this little gem. My husband found it, and I said, oh my God, we can do something amazing here. Casa Tua style, very quaint, just a charming type of garden with a beautiful indoor, and it's just like a little sanctuary of relaxation, a beautiful little cottage. And that's our dream, that's our inspiration. And I hope that you all know what Casa Tua looks like, because it's amazing. And if you don't go there and have some dinner, the food is delicious.
Thank you. So with that will conclude our presentation. And I would just respectfully request, since we are tweaking the proposed order, that I just clarify exactly what those tweaks will look like. So there is a subsection 2 labeled variances in the proposed order. I would request that that entire section just be removed, since that would be pushed away to the BOA.
Correct.
And then in section 3, just tweak the title slightly to say that those conditions apply to the design review approval. So remove that.
Yeah, we will basically modify the order to indicate that there are no variances as part of this. Under C, eliminate all those conditions. And then under 3 general terms, those are just applicable to design review approval, and none of those are related to the variance.
Correct. Yeah, it was just the title in section 3 that needed to be corrected. Otherwise, we have no objections. We're in full agreement with the recommendation as to the proposed order for the design review approval. And we're here to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'd now like to open up to public discussion. Is anybody here to speak on this matter? Please step forward.
And there is nobody online with their hand raised?
Okay. Then I'm now going to close the public portion of the presentation and open it up to the board for comments.
So, I mean, you're obviously boarding a residential area, which is no longer our issue. So, congratulations. I was at your bar in the late 90s for sure, and I've been here since 92, and I always remember it as a place where I could have a conversation and not scream over people. So I'm supportive of it.
Yeah, I'll definitely defer to our landscape architect too to just make some comments. But I think overall, I think this will be a great use for this structure, and I love this back garden idea and the inspiration images. And I mean, hopefully, I see you're putting in some pretty large trees back there. I'd say, you know, the bigger the better to start, since it's basically these 3 trees that are creating the environment. So my one comment would be just to make sure, I know it says they're 14 foot high, but I think that it's more about the age of the tree, right? So you're getting that image that I see that you present in the imagery board of this kind of canopy idea, which is what Casa Tua kind of grew into, right? So it's all like that. So yeah, I'm supportive.
Hello. Overall, I like it. It's a very simple design. However, I do see a couple of issues. In the architectural site plan, the trees are growing out of the pavement. And in the landscape plan, the planting pit is very small. So in order to have those 3 trees develop nicely, you're going to need a larger planting pit. Besides that, the only other thing I see is the triangles of visibility. When let me see where the north is here. Anyways, where the dumpster is, the dumpster is blocking the view.
Yeah, that's the north.
So there's got to be a way of resolving that issue. You need 2 triangles, one at each side.
Yes, and that dumpster enclosure is there existing. So, you know, to the extent that the visibility triangles are required for the right-of-way.
That needs to be resolved.
That will be something
because
that,
it could be a liability for the owners.
Yeah, and we would work with staff to get that right.
Right.
Yeah, we can include that as a condition regarding
Right.
that to be reviewed by Public Works, who reviews that requirement, as well as a condition regarding the review of the planting area for the trees to be sufficient size.
And I didn't see any irrigation.
We can require, irrigation.
So irrigation has to be
Yeah, it's in the proposed order, the irrigation, and with the reduction of the seats, there's more space to make those planting pits larger if needed. So.
Otherwise, it's very nice.
Thank you.
Does anybody want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve DRB 22-0904 with the landscaping, with the garbage thing and whatever. Working with staff to make sure that's approved properly.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The motion passes 4-0.
Thank you.
And I'm inviting all of you to the opening party.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Drinks on us.
And Giselle is going to read our last application on the agenda into the record.
The next item in the agenda is DRB 22-0886, 6940 Abed Ave. An application has been filed requesting design review approval for the construction of a new 10-story mixed-use building, including a waiver of the requirement for combined loading and parking driveways.
So this subject site, the applicant is proposing a new, excuse me guys. So the applicant is proposing a new 10-story building with 96 residential units, including 21 co-living units, and 2 floors of parking above a ground floor retail component on Abbott Avenue. The site is located mid-block and bounded by Byron Avenue to the west and Abbott Avenue to the east. The proposal includes 1 design waiver. To enhance the pedestrian access through this otherwise excessively long block, a paseo is proposed as required through the site along the north interior side yard. In the TCC district, driveways and off-street loading spaces are allowed on secondary street frontages. In this case, Abbott Avenue is a Class B street. It is not allowed to have driveways, while Byron is a Class C street and can have driveways. In order to minimize the vehicular breaks in the sidewalk to accommodate driveways, additional design guidelines implemented in the code include minimum distance separation requirements between driveways to prevent excessively wide curb cuts to minimize conflicts with pedestrians. The applicant is proposing 2 separate driveways on Byron Avenue, which require a waiver from the DRB. DCC does require that driveways for loading and vehicular parking be combined unless waived by the DRB. It is a design waiver and not a variance. We are supportive of this waiver based upon the narrow width of this site, which is one of the smallest lots that have been developed thus far, proposed to be developed in the TCC district. With that, we are recommending approval of the application, including the design waiver. However, just one last thing I forgot to mention, which wasn't noted in our staff report. The TCC district designates the north side as a Class D alley with a 10-foot setback. The applicant is providing that 10-foot setback for the building to allow the paseo, the pedestrian access through the site. However, it does also require that encroachments be limited to 3 feet. The applicant does have 6-foot balconies along the north side, so we'll have to revise the design, perhaps shift the tower slightly to comply with the 10-foot setback for the building and the 3-foot of encroachments for the balconies. That can be handled administratively. With that, we are recommending approval of the application with the conditions outlined in the draft final order. With that, I'll turn it over to Ms. Slavens, who's representing the applicant.
Before we begin, can we please swear in Ray Ford?
Yes, and sure. We'll do that first. Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you'll be giving in this proceeding is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? And for the board members, before we start, have there been any ex-parte communications to be disclosed? No. Okay, Ms. Slavens, is 10 minutes enough, or do you need more time?
I think it should be enough.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning. Tracy Slavens. My address is 3800 Northeast 1st Avenue, Suite 200. I'm here on behalf of the applicant, and I'm joined by Ray Fort, Andy Lackler, Jose Boschetti, and the rest of our team. The property, as Michael mentioned, is located on 6940 Abbott Avenue, and it's about a 24,800 square foot lot, zone TCC. It's in the North Beach Town Center core. The current use on the property, if we can bring up the presentation, thank you, is the former Bell South office. It's a very small building, and the rest of the area of the property is used for parking. Originally, that was utilized for repair vans, maintenance vans, and employee parking. So the site's been sitting vacant for quite a while. And as you can see, there's an existing condo building to the south. There's a vacant lot currently to the north, but that site is being redeveloped, and this board had previously approved that application. We're proposing a 9-story building that will have ground floor retail, 2 levels of parking, And then above the third level, we'll have residential and amenities. The total is 96 units, including 21 co-living units and 1 and 2 bedroom units. The retail on the ground floor is approximately 2,000 square feet, and we have about 16 units per floor. As staff mentioned, we are requesting a waiver to split the driveways so that the residents and guests can enter into a essentially residential driveway and have loading as a separate entrance to the building on the north side. Ray will walk you through the plans in detail.
Hi, good morning. My name is Ray Fort. Is there actually a microphone I can walk with over there? Or not really? I can.
We'll get you one
from here.
It's coming.
Okay. And okay. Right. Thanks. Okay. So I think it'd be important to just talk about a little bit of context of where this is. It is located within town center, and it's in the southern portion of town center. 71st Street is really considered to be the main street of town center itself. The site's located between Abbott and Byron. Abbott being a Class A street, and within the TCC regulations, Byron is not a Class A. I believe it's a Class C street. And so using some of the guidelines of the zoning code, we already started to understand where everything needed to be placed. It should also be noted that there is no 70th Street. So this site actually has to have the pedestrian passage on the north side of it, or somewhere on the site, but I think it's the north side that it's required to be on. So already with the site dimension of being 250 by 100, we lose 10 feet just for the Paseo to the north. And it makes it quite a long, narrow site to work with. A couple of other site conditions to note here are that there is a proposed development to the north that wraps around a building that is going to remain in place. It's in this blue site here. This one does have a proposed tower location a little bit pushed to the north, but it's something that we had to consider. And of course, we have the condominium to the south that essentially has a level of surface parking plus rooftop parking on top of it that gives us a buffer or a separation between the two, but it's something that we need to consider because the parking lot's not the best thing to be looking at for the residents. So we had a very sort of conscious effort when placing the building on the site with respect to that context. One more thing, it should also be noted that Abbott is a one-way street south, I think everyone knows. So just in terms of access to the site, it makes Byron the logical choice that it's more of a secondary street, and it's a two-way street as well. And here are some of the additional sort of context aerials that show the height of the adjacent condominium building. It doesn't show the context of the building proposed to the north, but we have a section that will show you that. So this becomes, in many ways, a connector project, an infill project that links 69th Street to 71st Street. So with that said, we'll start going through the plans. And starting with the ground floor, what you see here, starting from the north, is a paseo, a 10-foot wide, 10-foot clear paseo that brings us from east to west. The project to the north is also supposed to have that 10-foot wide paseo, so overall this will be 20 feet wide. But because this property is not part of any of the development, it'll narrow again to the 10-foot wide portion only located on this proposed site. We have about 2,000 square feet of retail fronting Abbott. We have a large lobby that is very activated with some co-working, which is part of the amenity of the building itself, not a third-party co-working. Mail package, management, etc. A large bike storage room that has access from the Paseo. And something to note is that the Paseo actually matches the ramping up that is occurring on the north side when we studied their plans. And that also gives us access to this elevated terrace and arcade that helps us deal with the base flood elevation from grade up to +9. So we have some images that show this streetscape condition. And then from Byron, we tried to separate the entrances from the parking and the loading as much as possible, so pushing them towards the ends. FPL requires that we have frontage on the streets, so that we have very limited frontage. Even though the site is quite long, there's only 90 feet per side in frontage, so it's quite narrow. With that said, we then move up in the building, and we have the typical parking floor, about 49 spaces per floor. And we have screened this on all front-facing sides and the Paseo side. And then we have the typical residential floor plate. I just want to note, Michael, that I did shift the building as per your comment in this, and we made that adjustment. But overall, the plans remain the same in terms of its design. So what you're seeing here is the tower portion of the building, the upper levels, I should say. This is only a 10-level building, by the way, and only 6 levels of residential. So the overall height of this is about 117 feet measured from BFE. It's below the 125 maximum height. The building is shifted to the north, giving us, and we've placed a landscape buffer on our own property above the garage that separates us from the condo to the south. And knowing the plans to the north and where that tower is, they also have an amenity deck over here. So there will be an equal spacing of buildings on the 69th to 71st Street stretch of this block. And we've placed the amenities on the top floor of the building. It should be noted this is not the roof, really, of the building because we're below the maximum height. We're not occupying the roof of the roof. We're on a level. We intentionally took a floor of the building to create a proper amenity floor. And we're placing a pool on one side, a sports court on the other side, and then a large covered outdoor deck facing southward. There are some pretty spectacular views looking back towards Biscayne Bay and towards the ocean from this upper level. Above that, we've located just an enclosed mechanical area. And then in section, you'll see the breakdown of the programming of the project. So you have the ground floor lobby, the 2 levels of parking, the 6 levels of residential, an interstitial floor to accommodate the depth of the pool, and then the amenity itself and the rooftop above that. I'm going to put these down so I can grab the other ones. So then just looking at some inspiration images from the neighborhood in the MIMO area, we like that the building had a lot of the context here has a lot of patterning to it. And there's a strong usage of breeze block, of vertical metal pipes, even some arches that are quite tall and dramatic. We thought these were all great references in putting together what could be a sort of a more contemporary take on it. And so the way we broke down the project is by looking at it from its podium levels, where the garage is located, and giving it a variety of different diameter pipes, a take on some of that MIMO style that range from about 8 inches in diameter up to 16 inches in diameter. Is that the 10 minutes? Or is that 1 minute left? Okay, 1 minute. And then we've put an exoskeleton on the building that is this webbing that creates kind of a pattern similar to what we see in the original MIMO designs that we reference. And sort of lifting the building up on this pilotis idea that we bring some of these round columns down through the garage podium and lift at those upper levels. So on a view from Abbott, it looks like this. This gray volume you see here is the proposed adjacent building. And as I stated, with the placement of the tower itself, we get this spaced out element along Byron and Abbott as we move our way up and down the beach. One thing to note about this webbing is that we've actually had tighter spacing at the lower floors, and then we slowly expand it as we get up to the upper floors and the amenity floor. So there's a dynamic sort of feel to that netting that goes up the exterior of the building. And I'll just run through the last of the renderings. So this is a street view. We've tried to place the landscaping along that differential where the building has to step up for the retail, and where that arcade is located. This is another view as though you're walking along the sidewalk. So by having the taller ceilings at the ground floor, the arcade feels open and not so closed. So you can still see the lobby, you can still see the retail in the back. And we have a set of steps on the southern side, and then the ramp, as I had mentioned, that locates the Paseo to get to the retail on the opposite side. We are also proposing a series of eyebrows that are clad in a metal edge and a wood ceiling to warm up this space, and then using sort of the inverse of those of that vertical piping as a scalloping that takes place as part of the facade, which is also sort of a little MIMO reference there. This is the view from the entrance to Paseo side, where you begin to see the ramping that crosses through. And lastly, this is a night view of the rendering in which we plan to illuminate some of the piping in the garage and and also illuminate the arcade as well. And I'll end on that.
Thank you. Does that conclude your presentation?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much. Are there any members of the public wishing to speak? I see no one. Is there anyone online?
There is nobody online with their hand raised.
Okay, great. I now close the public portion of the presentation and open it up to the board for discussion.
I really love the curved balconies in this building and the webbing, as you call it. I think it's really nice. I originally did not. I was so excited to see Breeze Block in your, and then I saw the poles, and I didn't love them. I think they're looking better at night, and when I see a close up of the color differentiation. But I don't know. Breeze Block would be so cool underneath, but nice design. I really am pretty supportive of it.
Appreciate that.
Yeah, I'll second what Scott has said too. I think there's a lot of really nice details happening here, and I know sometimes that can get lost when a building is so big. So I appreciate the efforts. I think this street facade with these little, there is something very kind of reminiscent of the past, I think, to me, and done in a modern way. So I think it's really successful. I love the use of a little bit of wood here. I too always get a little bit cautious with these rods that people use to surround garages. You know, I think there's a balance of quantity and density, and I just would say it definitely work with staff on really making sure you study that and that it's screened enough, but not too much, but it doesn't look sparse, because I've seen some where, we see a lot of screens, a lot of different types of screens, and I would say 75% of the time when it's actually done, it just looks like dirty gray screen. Or we see a lot of rods, and either there's not enough, or they just look kind of not very dynamic. And I do like how you've got, looks like variegated sizes and colors maybe happening.
That's correct, yeah.
Yeah, so I think that attention there is really, really important. I'm happy that your building is overall is squat, so you only have 2 levels of garage, so that's a really nice proportion, I think. So your retail is almost as big as your garage level, and I think that kind of proportion is really nice. I think this, you call it like a webbing idea. At first I was like, oh, it's kind of like the Palomar there at like 17th and Alton, I guess. But I see it's actually quite a bit, it's actually different in the way it's manifested. Yours is almost part of the structure, whereas the Palomar is kind of tacked on the front. So I think this is to me, it's a more successful way. I love that the amenity deck is on the roof. I think that's really nice. Brings the living units, down closer to the street, which I think is actually really nice. I'm happy to see that what's happening on Main Street with the much larger buildings, and this is kind of like the sister buildings in that zoning area. So it's really nice to see that these are kind of happening now that the rest of the street is kind of, I think we've approved like 6 or 7 projects on the main drag there, like that are probably 2 times or 3 times the height of this. So I think it looks great. I appreciate the fact that you want to separate the driveways. I don't know. My only comment would be I don't know if there's any way to make the driveways narrower to kind of minimize the cuts there. That's something I guess we could talk to staff a little bit about. I know there's some function that has to happen there, but basically with 2 driveways, mostly the entire back of your project ends up being, or 2/3 of it ends up being driveway, I suppose, or even more of it, I guess.
I like this project too. I think what I really like about this project is that it seems very well thought out. What you were explaining about the placement, and I really appreciate the entrance, that you're not focusing on Abbott, that it's on the lesser used street. So there are many details about this project that I think are just really fantastic. I do like the wood. It really does a great job of warming it up. And I do love the poles. I would just say I feel like this webbing is a little bit busy. That I think that you've made many interesting design choices, but that my impression was it was just a little bit busy, and maybe the webbing individually or the poles individually, and then these solid columns, the pilotis work, but I think for it to work better all together, to maybe have a little bit of, I don't know if it's regularity. I understand what you were saying, how you made it closer together at the bottom and then opened it up and it got to the top, but I don't know if that design choice is just making it look a little bit too busy unnecessarily. I remember the webbing, wasn't there something similar on the building that you proposed on Alton and 40th? Am I remembering correctly? It's next to the yeshiva? Like right
Those were sort of slanted at an angle, much larger in sort of its scale, but this is more fine grain and local to each unit in a way.
Okay, and vertical as opposed to, yeah, that would be my one of my main comments of just, I think that to maybe refine this webbing, I don't know if everybody else agrees, but just to refine the webbing concept a little bit, so that only because with the screening for the garage, there's a lot of lines, there's a lot of verticals, and then you have this webbing which adds even more verticals on that outermost plane. And so I just think that Jason used the word dynamic, which I think is definitely a wonderful characteristic, and I can see that you've added that, especially how you've made the verticals staggered like that. And I just wonder if, because there's so many additional vertical lines on the webbing, if that counteracts that sense of dynamicism that I think contributes nicely to this project. So that would just be my recommendation, to sort of, I think, for me, I like the verticals more, or I like the screening more than the webbing, and so that would be the thing to focus on. But whatever it is, I would just, explore a simplification. I don't know if others agree, but that would just be my recommendation. The other thing I'd love for you to pay attention to is this paseo. As a woman, I'm always very concerned when I see long, dark, narrow spaces that I need to walk through. And I love that you provided us with context and you added this additional building next door, because I think it really, I'm always really interested in context, and that's so much about what we do. But with this paseo, you've added some trees. I would just, it's always going to be shaded there because it's between, these two taller buildings. And I would just maybe, and I don't know if Fernando has, Orlando has something to add, but I would just maybe discourage the use of trees, and if anything, use lower plantings, because it's going to be a naturally sort of darker space, and I wouldn't want that to be any darker than it needs to be. So something to be, and I can see how also people that live in that neighborhood are going to be using that walkway frequently. So that's just something not to overlook.
I think that's a really good point, and it's one of the reasons why we wanted to place actually the retail and the potentially what could be an F&B location on that entry corner, so it has activity. And then I think, secondly, I didn't mention, but there will be ample lighting in that paseo, so it never becomes a dark space that you look down and you're wondering if you can get through it. It will be properly lit, and the fact that it's even straight allows you to see to the other side of the block, which in some cases, when you have paseos where you can't see the other side and there's like a tucked in corner that you have to wiggle around to get through, that becomes, I think, potentially those dangerous points that you're talking about. But that's a very, very good point. Thank you.
And then just maybe tying into that, I would say that elevation, which I guess is the north elevation. I know in your elevations, you're kind of showing everything kind of painted out like maybe in this grayish taupe color. But I'd love to see a little bit more color dynamics happening down there, maybe. It might be kind of nice to have, I'm not saying like a mural necessarily, but I know it's very kind of, it's a lot of solid wall down there as you're going back, and maybe one way to kind of create a little bit of visual interest there, and some, in addition to the lighting that you're going to add and all the really cool finishes and things, that maybe that wall has some opportunity for some kind of more, I don't know.
Decorative,
like I just see something. I see like a mirror, like something there, like a little color moment.
Yeah, I even think it could be something where there's a pattern in the paving that indicates that this is a special pathway and not some, like something more decorative in that respect when it comes to the hardscape, and not just the walls that you were mentioning.
Yeah, because I think, I can see it in the profile, like the way the paseo goes through, and I think there's like an opportunity here to kind of, because once the other building has their paseo,
Right.
then you kind of have this really, really cool spot that goes between the buildings, which, as Sarah said, I know like everybody will be going through there, for sure.
You know what? Can you bring up the slide 34? Because it shows a rendering. I zoomed in on my screen, but you can see right there, how dark it is. So, and even if there is, again, like, I don't know, but, something with like a colorful LEDs or, it's just long, something. The point was not to overlook that space.
I think, however, yes, I agree with you. It's the length of it could be improved by uniting the covered outdoor area with the paseo and making it one landscaped area.
Will stuff grow in so much shade?
Of course, some of it will.
I see what you mean. We can study that as well.
And of course, lighting will be of utmost importance.
Because at some point, the level of the paseo and the level of your terrace are the same. Is that correct?
That's correct.
After you ramp up from the two streets, there's a point where it's not ramps, but it's actually flush with which you're calling a covered outdoor area. So maybe think about, I think this is what you're saying, is think about that, your covered area plus the 10 feet. I don't know what you can actually, what the code allows you to do in that.
The way it's shown, it looks like you have to walk through the 10 feet.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have to start at the 10 feet. That's right. The way that we've currently drawn it.
Whereas if you unite those 10 feet to the covered outdoor area, it would be a much larger feeling, and with proper lighting, it will be less.
Like combining I don't know, like somehow working on all the ramps that are there at the front that are combined, sort of your plaza ramp with your paseo ramps, maybe? I don't know, like re-looking at that corner. Is that what you're thinking?
Potentially.
Yeah, and especially in the area behind the ramps, after the ramps, where there's the covered outdoor area, which is over 10 feet. Yeah. So that would make it 20-some feet of landscape area. I really like overall the building. I have one question. What's the height in the roof between the outdoor terrace, the covered outdoor terrace, and the roof, or the ceiling?
We have 15 feet.
15? Okay. Also, I see in the planting areas, I see one line. Does that mean that the planting pit is going below, or is it missing a line and it's going upwards?
No, because we have that interstitial slab, we're able to recess the planters.
How deep is it going to be?
5 feet.
So the planting medium will be 5 feet?
We'll probably have a little bit less because we'll make a little bathtub for it, but yeah, there'll be some.
Okay. I do have Christopher, I do have a question for you.
Oh, yeah. Good morning, everyone.
How are you?
I'm doing well, sir. Thank you very much. Chris Colleague.
Don't you think that the Thrynax and the lignum vitae will be too close to the 15 feet?
That's a very good point, Mr. Comas. I do. And on the, are you referring to on
the covered terrace?
On the covered terrace on the roof.
In other words, a Thrynax may reach over 20 feet.
Correct. I think that's a very good point.
And so would a lignum vitae.
Exactly. So if it's 15 feet above, well, I think that the Thrynax are so slow growing. We're just hoping to have a nice, small leafy palm.
But it
in
will
there.
grow.
It will grow, definitely. But we can definitely take a look at that and make sure that we specify
Yeah,
species.
I think you need to work with staff and in those two. Yeah.
No problem. Absolutely. Will do, Mr. Camas. Thank you very much, sir.
Everything else is very nice.
Thank you.
Excuse me, Madam Chair, there are a couple of people with their hand raised right now online. Would you like to reopen the public hearing?
Yes.
Any comments?
Is there any, are we done here? I guess we can get back to the comments. Sure. Okay, yeah, I'd like to reopen the public portion of the hearing.
We have one person with their hand raised with the number 1234. Are you there? Hello?
You hear me?
Yes, just a second.
Yes, caller 1234. I need you to swear you in. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony that you'll be giving in this proceeding is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I am.
Thank you, and we'll need you to state your name for the record, and I'll set the clock in 2 minutes.
My name is Bruce Fish. I'm the president of 401 Blue Condominium Association, which is to the south of this project. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
And I'm concerned about a few things. One is that the traffic, the parking is extremely dense now, and I don't see what the people on the side street are going to do, with getting up and down the street. That street is used going north sometimes around 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, and I just don't see with the building to the north of that that's going to be developed how this is going to work. I mean, our street, which is 69th Street, has an awful lot of traffic. The parking is, just maxed out in our building, and there's no place for people to park, on the street. This, of course, is going to reduce that by a few parking spaces. And I don't see if all the traffic that goes into the garages in my building is on, Byron, then the same thing is going to happen there. So there's going to be congestion again. I don't know if this was thought out, and if the city really gave any kind of a study to that. But with the building to the north of it, I find it a little bit unusual that they would approve not only that building, but the 10-story building that you were. I think it's a beautiful building. I think it's very nice. But, I can't see the additional density that is going to bring to the area. I thought maybe something else in the way of just park or something else would have worked better in that space, but obviously AT&T wants the money that they think they're entitled to, and the only way to get to that level
Thank you.
is to put a building on it.
Thank you for your comments. I had similar concerns. Thank you. Is there the next person?
We have one more caller, Elizabeth Burtons.
And Elizabeth, before you address the board, if you're there, I need to swear you in.
Yes.
Okay. Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony that you'll be giving in this proceeding is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Okay, and I'm going to set the clock at 2 minutes for you to address the board.
Okay, thank you. My name is Elizabeth. I'm also a resident from the Blue Building, and I was going to say almost the same that said Mr. Bruce before me. And my husband and I just bought an apartment here in the 8th floor, and now we are realizing that they are going to build a building in front of our view, and we are very disappointed. But I agree with Mr. Bruce that the biggest problem is the density and the traffic around the area. So I hope that you would reconsider about this building. It looks like a beautiful project. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
With that, that's our last caller. I just want to remind everybody that in this area of the city of TCC, there was actually a voter referendum several years ago where the residents got to vote on an upzoning from an FAR that was as low as 1.25 and a height of 50 feet up to 3.5 and a height of 220 feet. So that's why we're seeing, that's the reason for that referendum was to spur development of these North Beach parcels. So that's why you're seeing these applications before you today, and many other applications have been approved over the last 3-4 years as a result of that referendum. And in terms of traffic, and Tracy can comment on that, a traffic study is required to be submitted that's reviewed by our transportation department, and they have concluded that it satisfied the requirements of the transportation study.
Well, I live in the Nautilus neighborhood, and we're currently dealing with the 41st Street. So I'm very much hoping that the Department of Transportation is going to learn from what's happening there, because, a 96 more units, I understand. I think we all understand. We've all been stuck in that traffic in that area. So I'm hoping that the city comes up with something before people start populating these structures. So.
I echo that, and I hope everybody will stay in touch with our commissioners and our state reps, because it's ridiculous what's been going on in the neighborhood. I think that this project will put a lot of people that work and live in the neighborhood, which is really nice. I think the units are a nice size, and I think it's really, you guys did do a lot of detail with making the traffic come on the Byron side instead of, because that southbound is a disaster too. So anyway, I think they did what they could do. It's not our purview, but it's pathetic what's going on in that neighborhood right now with traffic.
And Madam Chair, if I may, we were cognizant of the parking issue, and we spent a lot of time analyzing what the appropriate number of parking spaces to provide is, because the TCC has very low parking requirements. Essentially, we were only required to provide 16 parking spaces for the building, but we provided 90. So we want to make sure that there's some version of a parking space for each unit, and that there's loading spaces that are ample, so when people move in and move out, they're not doing it necessarily on the street, and as much that we could put inside the building, we did our best to accomplish.
I think everyone appreciates that. And I think it also, of course, relates to the variance with the driveway and the entrance, which, I don't know. Personally, it seems like there weren't many choices. I understand why the TCC district, required that, but it doesn't, it seems like the only other choice would to have it be on the street side that's even busier.
Right. And just to clarify, it's a design waiver, not a variance.
Waiver, yes. I don't know if, I know Jason had made a comment to maybe make it smaller.
Let me see what the dimensions are.
We have 22 feet on the driveway up to the ramp to the garage, which is Miami-Dade County standard for two-way traffic, essentially, and then 24 feet at the loading dock to allow for the wider trucks.
22 is the minimum for the two-way drive, and for the loading, considering the trucks and access along the sides, that's probably about the minimum that you can do.
Yeah, I wouldn't narrow that. I have seen so many examples where these trucks can't even pull in no, I wouldn't touch that.
Well, and then that creates more traffic because it takes the trucks longer to pull in, and
I can try a motion. I move to approve DRB file 22-0886 with the condition that the applicant will work with staff on exploring the density of the webbing on the facade. We'll also modify the planters as discussed. I believe it was on the roof. Yes. And
what was the condition regarding the planting on the roof, the landscaping on the roof?
The spacing between the terrace and the roof is 15 feet.
Oh, the height.
The height of the plant material.
I think they've addressed that, though. Yeah. and maybe work with staff on exploring some additional color or finish integration at the north facade Paseo area.
On the along the
and possibly exploring also the integration of the Paseo with the building's patio area. A better integration.
To make it well lit.
And lighting.
And lighting. To confirm that there's adequate and creative lighting in that area.
Is there a second to Jason's motion?
Second.
Second by Mr. Comas. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
With that, our next meeting is April 4th. And I'm going to suggest, since Sam messaged me and he would not be able to be here until after 10:30, that we do the election of chair and vice chair next month. With that, we can adjourn the meeting.
Can somebody make a motion to adjourn?
Second.
Okay.
The meeting is adjourned.
Okay.
Thank you.